5 of us here, including me.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah. I knew that was going to happen. Oh, there it is.
How you doing, Bill? Good. How are you? Good. Good.
So maybe they can hear us on this side.
Are we muted?
We aren't right now. I can.
We're still having a few people enter us, a few council members. All right. Is everybody ready to start the meetings? We have, I believe, do we have 7 council members? I'd like to just quickly, if you're a council member, just identify yourself. I'm Ray Vinke. I'm with the Natural Resource Damage Program. We are going to be discussing updates on recreational projects in the Butte area today, as well as updates on a couple other items, but the revegetation work plans for 2021 and the Streamside tailings remainder. So anyway, so welcome council members, other parties. We look forward to sharing updates with you today, as well as having good discussion. And we do have one action item on the agenda. So could council members please identify yourself just for a roll call? Elizabeth, if you'd start with your room, that would be great.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Erickson.
Bill Callahan. Emmett Reardon. John McKee.
Larry Hoffman.
That's all in this room.
John Cecil.
Okay.
Courtney. I thought I saw your name.
Yeah, Courtney's on. So, all right. Well, good evening, council members, members of our public, publics. So, I'd just like to welcome you to this meeting. As I mentioned, we're doing recreational project updates, as well as addressing a couple other items of interest. One thing, as far as, in general, we have some general requests for you in order to participate in the meeting. Miranda will provide us with that slide, but briefly, we ask when you're not speaking to have your microphone on mute so that we don't have as much background noise. Also, it's best if folks not use your videos because that slows down our presentation. This meeting is recorded, so please be aware of that. And if you want to make a comment, you can raise your hand using Teams, or you can just speak and wait to be recognized. So we'd also ask that you provide your full name. So with that, I think Elizabeth's going to guide you through the agenda. What we're going to do tonight briefly is walk through the proposal by Butte-Silver and then give recreational project updates by their proponents or active parties. Anyway, Elizabeth, why don't you take it from here, please?
Thanks, Ray. First off on the agenda tonight, we'd like to welcome Larry Hoffman to our council. Maybe Larry could introduce himself and tell us a little about him.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm a mining engineer, formerly self-employed, now retired. And so deeply interested in Butte and the future of Butte. So I'm happy to be here. We'll see how it goes.
And deeply embedded in Butte, and everybody in Butte knows him. So
Fame but no fortune.
We'll add those two things. Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we are going to do a new council member orientation for the new members. So we'll be getting with you a little later, probably a couple weeks, and we'd like to go through the plan, kind of tell you what we've done so far, get everybody up to speed on kind of where we're at.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so we'll be getting a hold of you and doing that coming up here soon. As Ray said, we're looking at recreation projects tonight. The bulk of our meeting will be Butte-Silver presenting on Basin Creek. It looks like we may, as to Emmett's never-ending request, we may get Basin Creek open this year. Yes. Well done, Emmett. So we'll hear that first, and then kind of go through and have an update of the rest of the recreation projects. We will have a follow-up on the Reveg plan that we did last meeting, took a vote on. We've got a little bit of an update from NRDP on that, and then talk on the Streamside Tailings Fund transfer. So with that, I will give it back to Ray to coordinate all of the speakers tonight.
You're muted, Ray.
You're muted, Ray.
Okay, trying to follow my own rules. So Suzanne Nordwick has joined us, another council member. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up. And yeah, I think.
Can you hear me? This is Courtney.
Okay, great, Courtney. Happy to have you on the line.
Yeah, I got bumped out, but I couldn't get my mic working, so I got it working now.
Okay, great. Happy you're back. So, all right. So yeah, we're gonna step through the agenda, which leads off with Butte-Silver discussing Basin Creek, their proposal for how recreational access would proceed, as well as a request of the council in funding, and that will be an action item. So go ahead, Miranda, if you want to give us the next slide. All right, so yeah, so Pat's going to be presenting his presentation. I knew we put a lot of effort into it to summarize some of the resource values of Basin Creek, to give us a good overview of public's interest there, as well as, again, present his proposal to our public. So go ahead, Pat, you can take it away from here.
All right, thank you, Ray. Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the council. This is Pat Canine, and I'm here in the Public Works Building with Butte-Silver Parks and Rec Director Bob Lazary. And we will go ahead and start our presentation. Are you able to see our screen?
We are.
Yep.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for your time. And as Elizabeth indicated, Emmett's been waiting a long time to hear this proposal, so we'll march right into it. This picture of the Highlands was taken on Monday, and you can see we are hurting for snow. So the stuff you see coming out of the sky today is an answer to prayers. So thank you. At Basin Creek, I believe most of you know there's a lot of stuff going on out there right now. Chief of which is the rehabilitation of dam number 1. In the recent inspection by the DNRC, we found that the top 11 concrete portion of the dam, top 11 feet, needs to be shored up. And we did apply to the Montana legislature through the Renewable Resource Grant and Loan Program in House Bill 6, and we ranked 12th for that grant cycle. And we also put in for a Treasure State Endowment Program grant through the Department of Commerce. And on that one, we ranked number 1. And I would like to thank all you folks that gave us letters of support. I think we got 36 when we put in the RRG grant, and we got 44 letters to go with the TCEP grant. And we did find out today that we were awarded that $500,000 from TCEP. And we also heard today that Butte-Silver Bow did get a $15,000 RRG grant to do a hydraulic study of the upper dam, or the upper reservoir dam, dam number 2. And we do anticipate that we will get a letter notifying us of the $125,000 award from the RRG. I think most of you have seen these slides before, just how bad that shotcrete on the upstream face of the dam is eroding and breaking off, and we need to address that. So it's about a $4.5 million project, and we are still in the running for a FEMA BRIC grant. We put that application in a couple months ago, and we requested $1,650,000 that requires a $500,000 match from Butte-Silver Bow, and we do have that money set aside in the budget. We expect to hear from FEMA in June. Hopefully would get the award shortly after, and we would start preparing our environmental documents and complete the final engineering plan for that. And hopefully we could go out to bid in 2022 and start construction in 2023 and have it all done by the end of 2023. That's a pretty tight schedule. We're hopeful we can meet that. But while we're doing all of that construction on the dam, we would not allow public access up there. A lot of heavy equipment coming in and out, so it would be off limits, and most of that work would be done in the off season anyway. But that's what would happen there. Another project that's going on at the other end, the top end of the reservoir, is the NRDP aquatic organism passage plan, and that's a fish ladder to get fish out of the lower reservoir and up into the creek so they can get up to the upper reservoir. A lot of the good spawning habitat is in the creek between the 2 reservoirs. And this is funded by the Upper Clark Fork River Basin Aquatics projects for Basin Creek, which is was designated Class 2 TRIB. And we are working with NRDP to get the agreement in place. We anticipate that pretty soon. We hope to get it on a council agenda in next week or the week after that. And we anticipate late summer, early fall construction for that. Brian Bartkowiak of NRDP is the project manager for that one. And they plan to use native materials on site. So not only would they be working right up there around the sediment basin on the inlet of the or the lower reservoir, but also in the surrounding areas to try and find the rocks and stones required to build. Basically, it's a fish ladder. And this is what it looks like. This, the small basin you see there, basically traps sediment. And also there's a little doghouse up there where we can divert water out of the basin and into a pipeline that takes the water around the reservoir to the dam, and then we can put it in the pipe and take it to the treatment plant. And you can see on the right side of this picture is the Basin Creek itself coming in from the upper dam. And about every other year, they have to clean out that basin. I think last time they did it, they took about 18 truckloads of sediment out of there. And on the lower part of this picture, you can see the number of resting pools that will be constructed. I think there's 17 total. The design engineer, Matt Daniels from River Design Group, who did the preliminary plan for Blacktail Creek, when he looked at this, he said that's the most step pools he's ever designed in one feature. And I think there's 17 of them. Typically, the cutthroat trout can jump about 9 inches and get into the next resting pool and make their way up into that sediment basin and then on up into the creek to the spawning habitat. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like, in this picture, on the very top left is the doghouse that's at the top of the basin. And then you can see the pipe coming out. And then from that flat water at the bottom right of the picture up to the top lip of the dam for the sediment basin, it's about 11 feet. And from this flat water back down to the reservoir, I think is probably another 8 or 9 feet. So from the reservoir up over this sediment basin, it's a total of 20 feet. So quite a stressor for spawning cutthroats. So this would be a great project, and that would help assure that the trout are getting back up to the spawning habitat and creating a self-perpetuating fishery. The other project that we're currently working on is a fuels reduction. I think most of you are highly aware of the pine beetle damage or the infestation that came through in the early 2000s. And there's a bunch of standing dead and fallen dead pine beetle kill in and around the Basin Creek watershed. And what this fuels reduction program, we've consulted with the U.S. Forest Service. Tim Leahy is the new district ranger. He engaged us right away, and we've also got members of the DNRC fire crews to go up, and twice this winter, we all got together and went up into the Basin Creek watershed and looked at the situation there. And right now, Forest Service informed us that Butte-Silver Bow can harvest these dead trees off our county land. And so we're currently doing that. Our country crews came into town, and they're out at Basin Creek right now, cleaning up a lot of this deadfall. And we'll show you some slides of that. Right now, the U.S. Forest Service has an aspen project that they're getting ready to launch. Tim Leahy has joined us tonight, and he'll speak a little bit about that in just a minute. And also, we will work with the DNRC to try and get some grant money to do fuels reduction for the bigger part of the watershed. So with that, I'm just going to show you some pictures of what it looks like up there. You all were up there last fall, and you've seen this. You know, if you look at the standing dead and the fallen dead trees in this area, it's kind of a tinderbox. This is looking across the reservoir at that west shore, and it's pretty bad over there. There are no roads on that west side, so this is all difficult to get to. And of course, all this deadfall has no timber value, so it's a pretty daunting task to try and eliminate all this and have no revenue to speak of once you harvest this timber. I just have a few before and after. Our crews got up there the first part of May and have started clearing out the timber that's dead on county property. And this is a pretty good section of county property. If you keep your eye on this little lodge pole that's right in the middle, this is the before picture. And this is after. So you can see they've gone in and mucked out a lot of that fallen timber. Okay, the next one, if you'll keep your eye on the aspen with the white bark kind of on the left side of the picture, you can see all the dead fall in here. So this is before the crew started, and that's after. So they're doing a great job. But as you know, Butte-Silver Bow's property is pretty well limited to just the water body and the riparian area around it. So we don't have a lot of property up there. But what we can get to, we're getting out of there. And here's the crew doing it. They have an excavator, a mini X, and 2 dump trucks, and they're hauling it down and throwing it in the parking lot there. And this is available if anybody needs firewood. This is good stuff. It's dry, it burns great. So go help yourself. I just wanted to give you a little close-up of what this timber looks like. You can see in the top right picture a lot of the beetle holes, and then there's also same on the bottom left, and you can see a lot of the beetle tracks in there as well. So that's what we're doing up there right now. I'm going to hand it off to Tim Leahy. Tim, I'll advance your slides, but if you can go ahead and start talking about what the Forest Service has got going on up there in Basin Creek.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pat. And thanks for those before and afters. That's awesome work you guys have done. So obviously the fuels concerns don't stop at the forest boundary. And we've been out there, like Pat said, on a couple field trips. And one of our firefighters had the idea of using this forest-wide aspen decision that we have. And this is NEPA cleared. We can implement this. And basically the purpose of that project is to target stands where there's aspen and do some cutting, slashing, and burning to promote the growth of aspen. How it fits in here is that we also have the side benefit that it can greatly help out our fuels in the area. So like I said, that's NEPA cleared. There's no planning involved in that, and we can actually get started on that probably earliest by this fall. So if you look at this map, we've got about 571 acres identified in the units. And I've got you can go ahead and flip forward and I can show a couple pictures. So this is on the Forest Service side. So you can see obviously the deteriorating lodgepole stands doesn't change as you get up into the forest. And you can see in here some little stems of aspen. Pat, yeah, there you go. They're in there and they will respond quite well if we do some removal of that downfall, get some sunlight on the ground. And of that 571 acres, quite a bit, most of that, we will put some fire on the ground. And we will work with Pat, and one of our concerns, we don't want to get too much fire because we don't want a flush of sediment down into the reservoir. So we'll be working closely with Pat on that. And then go ahead to the next slide, Pat. Here's another classic aspen stand. It's a little more difficult to see because it's in the snow. And this is, I believe these were unit 1 and 10 on the map, but you can see the aspen there. You can see quite a bit of the downfall. So this again is what we'll be targeting. Most of it, like I said, will be slash, and then we'll put some prescribed fire in there. And that will help. It's just a drop in the bucket at this point. It's only 570 acres, and we know we've got a lot more work to do. But the more of this work that we can get done and get some prescribed fire out there, in the event that there is a wildfire in the future, this could take some of the energy out of that, so it's a little bit more manageable. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Like I said, we'll hopefully get started this fall on that, and probably work for the next couple years. Sometimes it's difficult to get our burn windows in the fall and the spring. You've got to have just the right weather. So that could be difficult to implement, but we'll work through that. And then the larger watershed, there is a few hundred more acres, I think a couple hundred more acres of this aspen type work. We'll target some of that. And then we'll need to do some planning for a larger project because we need to, if you add up what the county's done, which I don't know what your acreage is, Pat, and then what we've done, it's not quite the percentage of the watershed that we need to treat to affect the kind of change we want to see out there. But it's a step in the right direction. I'm happy we're able to get some of this implemented so soon. So that's what I have. Thanks everybody for having me.
Tim, thank you for sharing that with us. We'll continue on. So we did ask, just to let you know, last time we talked, we were in the process of getting the fence up. And this fence runs from basically the bottom of the east ramp all the way up and over the dam. We had first put that out to local contractors, didn't get any responses. So we put it out to Southwest Montana. Bridger Fence out of Belgrade came in and did the work, 1,400 linear feet, 2 gates. They were able to pound in the poles. And I think the total cost was about $33,000. But this fence, like I said, runs from the bottom of the ramp all the way up and then over and then down actually into the reservoir. If you were on the field trip last fall, this is where we came in, and this road leads you right up and over the dam. So this fence will hopefully prevent curious folks from getting themselves in trouble on the dam or other water system infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Lazary now. We did ask Caleb Yearling, the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks fisheries biologist for the Upper Clark Fork River, to join us, but he is actually on an airplane right now. But he gave us 2 slides here, and Bob's going to present this material. Bob?
Madam Chair, council members, thank you for having us tonight. As you can see, Caleb went up into the fish count in 2020. 197 West cutthroat were caught in 3 nets up there. He thought this was a very high density number of fish. These fish range, as you can see, from 6.3 inches to 14.4 with the average of 9 inches. These are small fish. Indicates that the densities are too high and the fish are stunned right now. The Fish and Wildlife will implement official regulations on the reservoir using the 2022 fishing regulations. Until then, we'll ask for a voluntary regulation to be put in place. These fishermen could harvest 1 fish per day rather than the 3 fish per day standard regulation. And again, this is voluntary. We can't really enforce that number. Again, Caleb will come back in the fall of 2021, do another fish count, determine how the fish is impacting the population up there. If we get those numbers down, he thinks it will likely improve the quality of the fishery by reducing densities, giving a larger and healthier fish. So this is kind of our proposals for the seasons from 2021 through 2023 to offer some recreation opportunity up there. We would open up Memorial Day and go till October 1st. That's the date we use right now at the reservoir at the Basin Creek recreation area. Hours are approximately 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is usually dark. We'd only give access to the east shore of the lower reservoir. So you walk up that east ramp, you get access another mile east roughly up to the sediment pond. It prevent people from going over to the dam side. This would be a walk-in trail, non-motorized bicycles. There'd be hiking, biking, picnicking, fishing allowed up there. There'd be no fires, swimming, watercraft, overnight camping. Again, so these seasons could be interrupted or end early for construction activity that we mentioned earlier. If there was with heavy equipment, it could stop recreation for that time. Low water level would also mean people couldn't be up there. It's such as the banks are so steep going into the reservoir. We want to keep turbidity low in that reservoir. High water temperature, which of course creates more stress for the fish. So that would, again, could interrupt access. And then high wildfire risk. We would follow the regulation from the Forest Service on that. We still think that the best and highest use of this water is for this reservoir is for water for Butte-Silver Bow. So we think we really need to closely monitor what's happening up there in this recreation time. We can only provide some limited monitoring. One thing that we think we can do is our arborist lives in that house right at the Basin Creek. We would use him every day to go up there, monitor, walk around. He would drive up the road, collect garbage, and just kind of be a presence an hour a day up there. So I guess what we're requesting funds for right now would to be have a camp host who would be camped down next to the ramp. He'd be there during that time from Memorial Day through October. We would have 3 porta potties up there. So one at the bottom of the ramp, halfway up, and up closer to the top. And so this is the funding request. So the camp host would receive $50 a day, for an average of 122 days, at a total of $6,100. Porta potty, $150 a month, 4 months for $600. So each season we'd be requesting $6,700. For the 3 seasons, the total would be $20,100. Again, we think with the camp host and with Trevor up there, our arborist, we can kind of monitor what's happening up there to make it for a better recreation area. And hopefully that's what people want to see up there. I know we do. If any questions, please ask.
Thank you for the presentation. We sure appreciate that. We'll go ahead and take questions from the council first and then move to the public. So is there any questions from the council? If you're online, just raise your hand and we'll call you. If you're in the room, go ahead, Emmett.
I have 2 questions. One is, can you possibly give us an update on that caretaker's house and how that fits into your plan?
Emmett, this is Pat. Mary McCormick, the Historic Preservation Officer for Butte-Silver Bow, has, I think, secured about $160,000 to do the restoration work at the caretaker's house. And she's delivered some material to the Public Works Department. We're putting that together for a bid package that should go out later this month, possibly in June.
Okay, well then, once that's completed, will the caretaker live there then?
At this point, I think the plan is to keep Trevor, the arborist, in the watchman's house. There are no solid plans for the Basin Creek caretaker's house at this time, Emmett. I know that what Mary has set aside is basically to do the exterior and interior work on the house and ADA ramp, but it doesn't include funding for a septic system that would be needed. And also in the old days, they used to get the water right out of the pipe from the reservoir, but now that we send that water downhill to the treatment plant about maybe a mile or two downhill. So that water would have to be treated and brought back uphill. So I think that's probably not feasible. So they would have to drill a well to provide potable water to the caretaker's house. I believe the well at the watchman's house is 565 feet deep. So I'm guessing that's maybe a $30,000 well. I don't know that. I don't know what costs are like right now, but funds for those two, for the water or the sanitary, are not on the shelf yet. But those two items would have to certainly be addressed before that house could be occupied.
Okay. The next question, have you developed any kind of plan for after 23 for like a full opening, or, you know, you had talked in the past about renting watercraft and trails and stuff. Has that been pursued at all, Pat?
So Emmett, if you guys recall, I think it was maybe the first solicitation for small projects, George Grant Trout Unlimited was given $100,000 to come up with a master plan for the recreation in the area. And I believe they pretty much got a draft final on that. I think there's about $16,000 left in that contract. And also I recall that SARTA had provided or set aside $100,000 to put amenities on the ground once that plan was approved. And I understand that Georgia Grant has not gotten in contact with SARTA to get that contract. So that's still sitting out there. But I would say that there wouldn't be any recreational structures or trails built until after all the infrastructure work is done. And again, best case, that would be the end of 2023.
Okay, Pat, last question. When are you gonna open it?
Well, from here, you guys will deliberate tonight and decide if you would provide that interim funding. And if you say yes, then we would work with Ray and Doug to get a contract. That contract has to go through council, and all communications to council have to be in on a Friday by 2, and they would consider it at their next meeting on a Wednesday. And then once we have that signed contract, we would have to advertise for the host. And I'm not sure yet if we would just do that on our website or what that would look like or how long we would solicit. But once that selection is made, we'd get that person on the ground and in place and probably walk through it for a day or two with them to get them familiar with their duties and the area. So I'm thinking it's probably like a mid-June at best.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Perfect. Any other questions in the room here? All right, I see Courtney has a question. Courtney, would you like to go next?
Yes, please. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Can you go to the slide on the porta potty budget? And I'm just questioning the porta potty, well, probably both lines, because I'm trying to follow the math there. I can see 150 times 4 is 600, but then there's the 3 that sits in there, so that number should actually be 1,800. Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry on that, Courtney. You're a teacher. You're always checking the math. So I think it's $50 a month for each porta potty times 3.
Okay. And then the 50 times 122, I'm going to presume that, I mean, that looks right. So, but thanks for that, Pat.
You bet. Sorry about the error.
No worries. Pat, you had some budget numbers for FEMA at 1.65 million, and then a Butte-Silver match. This was way up front of 0.5 million. And then on the slide before that, you showed some grant numbers. And I was just wondering if those numbers right there were included in those figures?
No, those are all separate, Courtney. So from the state, we expect to receive 625,000. From FEMA, we're hoping for that 1,650,000, and then at least 500,000 from BSB to get going. The middle option for the alternative to replace the top portion of the dam, I think it was about, I want to say, I'd have to go back and look, Courtney, but those numbers added up get us to that middle option. We're doing some additional investigation right now, and depending upon how that turns out, there is a possibility that we would have to remove that top 11 feet of concrete completely and replace it. And I think our original estimate for that was like 4.2 or 4.3 million. So if that's the case, we'd have to come up with more funds to do that project.
Well, you're with the grants that you have, you don't know about yet, and with the money in hand, or if let's say the FEMA comes through and all those other come through, you're sitting close to 3 million. So you still need about another $1.5 million, correct? If
we did that removal of the entire concrete portion.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And then Pat, you said the sediment comes in all the time, and you have to remove that sediment. I just presume that's natural erosion. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, Courtney. And when Brian Bartkowiak and from NRD and Matt Daniels from River Design Group, they walked along the creek from the upper reservoir to the lower reservoir, and they identified some pretty big bank cuts in the area, and they had proposed that there would be maybe some armoring on some of those banks later on if there's money left over from this project. But that's still, at this point, just tentative. But anything we could do to stabilize the stream banks would help. I don't know if you've ever been to the upper reservoir, but it's basically a timber crib dam, and then they covered it with rocks and sediment, and they had to breach it several years ago. And basically it's sand, so that's probably a big part of where the sediment's coming from too.
Because that was going to lead to my next question. Has anybody thought about stabilizing that erosion?
Yeah, and we do, as I shared a little bit earlier, we just did today get an award for $15,000 from the Renewable Resource and Grant Loan Program to do a planning grant for that hydrology study for dam number 2.
All right. And then my last question is a simple one. On the fence that you put up, is there any effect on wildlife, or do you have little holes in that wildlife could get in and out?
Courtney, at the bottom of this ramp, wildlife could cross over through the park around the caretaker's house and come up the west ramp. But in this itself, No, we haven't provided for wildlife passage.
And I don't know that it's that important. It's just something I thought I should ask.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
You bet.
All right, any other questions from the council? Oh, I should notify everybody too. I see Sister Mary Jo on too. So we have all 9 council members here tonight. All right. Seeing no additional questions, we will go to NRDP's recommendation on the Butte-Silver Bow's proposal.
Great. So this is Ray Venke with Natural Resource Damage Program. There I'm up. And yes, staff did examine this. We very much appreciate the work that Butte-Silver Bow did to pull this proposal together. We know it took a lot of internal coordination, and I know our publics are highly interested in having some public access while balancing resource concerns. So, yeah, thanks. Shout out to Butte-Silver Bow. We really do appreciate it. So yeah, Madam Chair, members of the council, it is the Natural Resource Damage Program's proposal that, you know, we do fund Butte-Silver Bow's request for $20,100 for support recreational access at Basin Creek. The proposals, it's consistent with our restoration plan. The cost is reasonable, and in the past we have a practice of supporting initial operations and maintenance on parks. So yeah, so we would recommend supporting this proposal, but certainly are interested in your recommendation.
Great, thanks, Ray. With that, does anyone from the council have questions on the proposal in front of us? Questions, comments? All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
Should we ask questions of the public?
Yes. Does the public have any questions on the proposal? If you have a question, just raise your hand and we can call on you. Or if you're on the phone, just yell out. All right.
So Elizabeth, I would like to mention, if you're interested, we did draft up language for a potential proposal that would of course be subject to your changes or approval, but if you'd like to see that, Miranda can present it.
Yes, I see somebody's got a hand up, but I can't tell who it is.
I saw Dan Olson.
Is it Dan Olson? Okay, Dan, go ahead. Dan, did you have a question?
His microphone's off.
Got your mic off.
Yeah, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
This is Dan Olson, and I don't really have a question, but I was the former commissioner for this area. I really support this. I live downstream from this area. We've put in time to clean up the superintendent's house, or the caretaker's house, I guess it's called. And so I think this all fits together. I think it's a great thing. I support it highly. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your comment, Dan. Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions from the public? Comments? Anything? All right, Ray, do you want to go ahead and show us your proposed motion language?
Yeah, I believe Miranda's pulling that up right now, and yeah, have a look.
Great. I'll just read it so everyone can, in case people on the phone can't see it. It's I move to recommend the Butte-Silver request for $20,100 in funding from the Butte Area 1 Restoration Fund to support public access at the reservoir in 2021, 2022, and 2023, contingent upon Butte-Silver's implementation of their presented proposal for public access to Basin Creek Reservoir. That seems to sum up the proposal pretty well.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Anybody have any changes or issues with that motion from the council?
No.
All right. Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to do what that says.
Perfect. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion from Emmett and a second from Bill Callahan. We'll go around the room here and then we'll do the folks on the line. So we'll start with you, Larry.
Aye. John McKee, aye.
Aye.
Bill Callahan, aye.
Elizabeth Erickson, aye. John Sesso,
Aye.
Sister Mary Jo. You might be muted.
I am.
There you go. Now we can
Aye.
hear you. Great. Courtney Young,
Aye.
Suzanne Nordwick.
Aye.
Great. The motion passes unanimously. Thanks, everyone. We'll go back to Ray and move to the other ongoing recreation projects that we're going to have updates of.
Yeah, so Bob Lazary is actually going to make a presentation on behalf of Butte-Silver. I believe he or Pat, relative to Molten Reservoir and where we are at relative to project planning there. So. Yeah, very good.
All right, can you see our screen?
We can, or we could.
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay, this is Pat Canine again. So we'll just give you an update of where we're at on Molten. The situation is pretty similar to Basin Creek. I'll just go through and let you see what we've got for grant monies on the Molten. In 2016 and 2017, we were successful at procuring grants from the Army Corps of Engineers for the dollar amounts shown on the screen there. And in 2017, we secured an RRGL grant from the BNRC, and then Butte-Silver had to put in a match of $116,500. And also, you all in 2016 provided a recreation. It's a small project grant for recreation of $100,000. And just last week, Butte-Silver submitted a FLAP grant. FLAP stands for Federal Land Access Program, and we partnered with the U.S. Forest Service on this application to improve the road from Walkerville up to Molten Reservoir. It's basically almost an $11 million job. Butte-Silver would have to put in a match of 13.82%. And we will hear probably in July if we get that grant. So those are the funds that we have in place right now to address the issues at Molten. And the big thing there is the spillway. And since we procured or secured those funds, we've done a number of studies up there, and we call them the dam studies. So we've done a lot of dam studies up there, and basically right now we're coming up with the dam plan. And we actually solicited engineering firms to provide us with a proposal, and they are due tomorrow. We'll evaluate those the next week and hopefully award a contract to the successful engineering firm to design the new spillway. And hopefully by early fall, we'd have the alternatives identified and look at the feasibility of each of those alternatives. And hopefully we would have a final plan by the end of the year. And then we would go out to bid early in 2022 and potentially be on the ground doing work in spring 2022. And we think it's a 1-year job. But if any of you have been up to Moulton, you know that's almost 7,000 feet, and there's a Nordic ski area up there, and it keeps snow for several months of the year. So we could get bounced out early, or we could get a late start. So, but we hope to have everything wrapped up there by 2023. And once those infrastructure improvements have been completed, then we would go into the recreation piece. And this is out of the plan that Butte-Silver Bow had. I think this is actually from Robert Pescia's plan, and I will let Bob Lazary talk about this. Bob?
Hi guys, this is Bob. So if you take a look around the reservoir itself, that's Butte-Silver Bow property. It's mostly in the riparian area all the way around, really close. The problem when you get over here is a spillway, and there's no access across that right now. So that would have to be addressed to make a loop around there. Part of the study too, this loop that Robert Pesch came up with is on Forest Service property. Around there. If you were to look at this area right here, this actually leads up to the CDNST trail, which would be a great connection too in the future. Anything else, Pat, that I'm missing on that?
Nope. I just got a text from Ray. Are you folks unable to see our screen? Should be a PowerPoint up there.
We cannot see your screen, Pat. We
Okay.
just see. I have a slide that shows picture Moulton Reservoir, and that's what we're seeing. So,
Okay.
sorry, people have missed your numbers and some of your graphics.
Well, we will try and get there. Ray, do you have to unshare first?
No, Miranda has you taken care of.
Now we can see it.
Got it
Okay.
now.
All right. Sorry about that. It looked good from our end.
Yeah.
Damn you.
Exactly. I'll page back to the couple of slides we went through. These are the grants we've secured. And the FLAP grant is pending. We hope to hear in July on that one. Butte-Silver Bow and Forest Service also teamed up on a FLAP grant for Roosevelt Drive, basically from Highway 2 up to the end of Roosevelt Drive. And that's about, I believe it was $8.5 million proposal. And we should hear back at the same time as the Moulton Road. These are the studies that we've completed. So I know it looks like nothing's been done on the ground, but we've done a lot of dam studies. And there they are. I think just about everybody in town's given us a dam study. So we've got a lot of dam experts in this town. And there's our plan moving forward. That's kind of the construction schedule as we go forward. And then Bob was talking about this trail system here. I'll let him repeat that.
Okay, so this is the end of the road. This would be the parking area over here. You'd walk up to the reservoir. The trail would hug the side of the reservoir all the way around. This is Butte-Silver Bow property all the way here. If you were to go all the way around the dam, right here is the spillway location. There is no access across that that have to be addressed. Robert Pesch also drew this loop is actually on Forest Service property. And if you were to follow this little drainage up kind of like this takes you up. It'd be a nice connection to the CDNST trail up there. So yeah, I think it'd be kind of a neat area to hang out with up there. This shows you the parking lot there on the west end of it, with the vault toilet, a boulder that keeps people from getting up there. So I think that's kind of about it for that one.
All right, any questions on that one? People just keep.
Hi, this is Suzanne.
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, I just was looking on the Montana Cascadal, and there is, I'm sorry, I was echoing. It looks like there's a couple private, or there's one parcel that looks like it's privately owned on the kind of down there at the junction. Anyway, so but it might not be up on the boundary, but the land above that looks like it's privately owned from what I could tell. So I didn't know, like, you guys should double check that, I guess is all I want to say.
Point taken. Thank you, Suzanne.
Any other questions or comments?
Will the road and the parking area, will that be dirt road?
Yeah, Courtney, I believe that calls for paving that area, and the flap grant would take us right up to the parking lot.
Okay, because that would be my preference, so that's good. Thank you, Pat.
You bet.
All right, thanks you guys for presenting that.
Thank you.
Who's next, Ray?
Yeah, great. So we're going to continue with our updates, and Bob is still on the hook with the Skyline Fishing Pond and describing Butte-Silver Bow's work there. So gave him a couple prompts, but Bob knows what's going on up there better than anybody. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, so up there, Skyline, we get a lot of people up there. It's like turned out to be a pretty popular area. I think it's a nice design. So this year, April 16th, we stocked 200 cutthroats in that pond, and we should do that again later in the summer also. It gets a lot of use. There's three offsite. There's three enclosed dog areas up there. It's just kind of a cool pond or a cool space.
Great. Anybody, any questions, comments on that one?
You know, something else I'd like to mention too is we also have a pond up at the Copper Mountain recreation area down there by Beef Trail Road. We also stocked that pond also. So this year we stocked so far 200 rainbow trout in there, and we'll probably do that again in the fall. And it gets a lot of use too. The kids really like it. So.
Great. Yeah, we've got some good recreation opportunities really close to town.
Right.
Okay. Seeing no comments, Rick, let's go ahead to the next one.
So our next speaker, we're going to be having Bradford Watson from, oh, I apologize. Our next speaker is Julia Crane with Butte-Silver, and she's going to be providing us an update on work on the Big Butte. So take it away, Julia.
Thanks, Ray. Does everybody have pretty good sound for me?
We do. We can hear you great, Julia.
Okay, great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Well, thank you everybody for having me. It's a nice opportunity to come and talk with you a little bit about the Big Butte, which is a project that was funded in Butte, I think really in 2005, and was awarded by the Upper Clark Fork River Advisory Committee. And it's my understanding this project preceded my joining Butte-Silver Bow, but early on in the process, Butte-Silver Bow received a planning grant to conceptualize how they could bring the Big Butte into public ownership. And in that same time frame, about 2005, 2006, Butte-Silver Bow received an award of approximately $660,000 to acquire property on the Big Butte and to protect the resource for public recreational benefit. At the time, there was a lot of unmanaged motorized access on the Big Butte that was tearing up native vegetation and causing some of the vegetation, mainly the conifer species you see on the Big Butte today, to have some struggles in growing. And so through the grant, Butte-Silver Bow spent approximately $660,000 to acquire property, or $510,000 to acquire 27 legal parcels from 16 private landowners that brought about 305 acres into public ownership. And then another approximately $90,000 was spent to protect the resource. And those investments included installing jackleg perimeter fencing around the Big Butte to help prevent some of that motorized use from accessing the area. And then bringing on Conservation Corps to help do trail cutting and trail development across the Big Butte to transform some of the Jeep trails on the Big Butte into more pedestrian and biking friendly trails, and then to install trail signage. In 2013, this was one of the projects that I had started working on when I joined the planning department, and there was, after a final land acquisition, about $70,000 remaining. And at that point in time, Butte-Silver Bow had followed along with some of the recent developments with other NRDP funded projects. Previous to that time, many restoration funds were not being used for long-term maintenance and were not recommended for use of operations and maintenance of NRDP investments. But at that time, the philosophy had changed. And seeing this change, Butte-Silver Bow brought a modification request to the Upper Clark Fork River Advisory Committee to move the remaining approximately $70,000 into long-term maintenance for the care and the management of the Big Butte. So since that time, Butte-Silver Bow has spent approximately $7,000 annually to perform O&M on the Big Butte, spending that money to hire primarily a trail aide for the summer to pick up trash. And as you guys are all aware, there's just tremendous dumping that happens behind the Big Butte, and people it's getting better, but tend not to really do too much care of the trails. And so we have a trail aide that picks up trash. They monitor the trail conditions. They also serve as a liaison to users, and often we'll have them do mapping on our behalf in order to make sure that we have an accurate display of what the trail extents are on the Big Butte. So the responsibilities that the trail aide completes are supplemented as a match with Butte-Silver Bow Parks staff. So garbage collected on the Big Butte is picked up and disposed of by the BSB Teamsters. And then often our trail aid identifies damage to signage and fencing. You wouldn't believe the crafty ways people can upend a fence. We found that to be true. And in those instances, the grant monies will purchase replacement materials in order for us to then have our BSB Parks laborers go up and repair damage to the fence. And in addition to this, Butte-Silver Boat also supplies weed management to the facility, both chemical and biological in nature. The number one weed problem we have in the Big Butte is knapweed, and so the weed department does do biological management of the knapweed population on the Big Butte, as well as others on the Butte Hill. For those of you who live uptown and for those of you that do drive to the Big Butte, we hear all the time from people who live in the Big Butte neighborhood that it is surprisingly popular with local residents. There are a couple of people that live on side streets like Woolman or Antimony that will report seeing several dozen people, unique people, accessing the Big Butte on a daily basis to hike throughout the year, bringing their animals, a lot of biking that happens during the lunch hour. And so Butte-Silver Boat is exceptionally grateful for the investment that NRD has made in this resource. And we have about $42,000 remaining for long-term O&M. So we will continue to provide that $7,000 a year and then match it typically 3 to 1. And I also wanted to add that because of the investments that the NRD has made in the Big Butte, Butte-Silver Bow has been able to really demonstrate the public benefit, and it has helped us to secure additional grant funds that are unique to trail development through the Recreational Trails Program that is through the state of Montana. And we have used those dollars to generate additional trail connectivity between the Big Butte and the Montana Tech resources, such as the Bike Skills Park and also the golf course that are on the Montana Tech property behind the NRB building. So that's really the update. We plan to continue with O&M for as long as we can with the funds we have available from NRD and continue to really enhance and also encourage stewardship of this resource by the public. And if you have any questions, I'm sure I can answer them, or our friend Bob Lazary can help answer them as well.
Thanks, Julia. This is a great resource for Butte. I'm so glad that you were able to get this property into public ownership, and it's one of my favorite spots. I know that. Just the vantage from the top of there is just spectacular.
It truly is.
Yeah, it really is. So what a great thing for Butte. And with that, does anybody else have comments or questions for Julia on Big Butte? I'll see a thumb up. Go ahead, Larry.
Larry Hoffman here. Julia, were you able to acquire all of the private property included in that?
Yes, Mr. Hoffman, we were. 305 acres was brought into public ownership, and it is a contiguous parcel.
Very good.
Absolutely. I do want to mention, because Ray has put this photo up, that arch that you see there was a project that was sponsored by the Friends of Stodden Park, and it was funded by Montana Tech Facilities and the SARTA. So we're seeing a lot of, I think that the NRD funding in this has really leveraged other entities to really make investments in the area as well. And we can only hope for similar momentum on our other projects in Butte.
Great. Great project. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks.
All right. Should we go on to the next one, Ray?
Yeah, very much. The next one, we have Bradford Watson to speak about the proposed Bonanza BMX Park. This was I believe it was a small project grant that was recommended by BNRC in 2016. And Bradford's gonna describe the project and the status and we appreciate his attendance. Go ahead, Bradford.
Great. Thank you, Ray, and hello to everybody. I wanted to start by saying the last in-person meeting I attended as the pandemic was ramping up was this meeting back last March. So hopefully, as things are maybe getting back to whatever our new normal is, it is certainly wonderful to see and hear all the great projects that are happening here in Butte. The Bonanza project is the 8-acre parcel there, kind of on the southwest side of the Butte Hill. And we were graciously awarded the $100,000 from this group here towards the enhancement of that park. As you can see from the photo here, it continues to be used as a BMX track developed by youth in the community there. And our proposal is to make the Bonanza here the third sanctioned USA BMX compliant track in Montana. And we were fortunate enough to receive $51,000 from SARTA in 2 different grants as well, in addition to this $100,000. One of those was for improvement of health, that we can see where youth ages 5 to 12 who get involved in things like BMX have improved lifestyle health, long-term health improvements. But also we received money from SARTA for economic development, that we can see from the 2 tracks that exist in Montana, that people will travel. Having that sanction of being the USA BMX designation means that people can travel not only from the region, but from anywhere in the country and be awarded points towards the season there. And so that means then people staying in the town, buying resources, hotel stays, restaurant visits, those kind of things. So this is a project actually that began for me in the summer of 2013 in terms of working with folks at Butte-Silver and Pat Canine and Julia Crane being a big part of that. In terms of looking at how all of the investment in reclamation can really be about both health, about economic, about community there. And so you can see the site here located adjacent to the school. Some of the projects that we're talking about partnering there would include looking at the creek that runs through that site and how children could be involved in kind of citizen science, educational programming around that. And there are a lot of programs that exist in terms of grant funding that could help support long-term programming beyond the implementation of this site. And so we have continued to look at where additional funding could come from in terms of supporting this project. But as an update to this group in terms of where we stand today, we are really in a point of waiting on where, with the signing of the consent decree and where the reclamation prioritization and scheduling will occur in terms of where we can then eventually get to. And if you could advance to the next slide there, please. In terms of what the full implementation of the site can be. We have identified a number of national grant opportunities. We have been in conversation with the group People for Bikes, which is a national organization around bicycling, that are very interested in supporting a project like this. However, without having a definitive timeline in terms of when the site can be prepared for this and when we could implement the final construction, they reprioritizing, that we could not go out for funds until we know when we will be able to see this project come into completion. So not dissimilar to when I spoke with you a little over a year ago, my colleague, Rebecca Van Weeren, faculty in landscape, as well as students that I continue to work with on issues in Butte, are fully committed to seeing this project through, and want to thank this group for their support of this project. And we are hopeful that we'll be able to work out a schedule here in the near future and know when we could then begin to go out for those additional funds, as well as to reopen conversations with Butte-Silver, as well as other community members who have expressed interest in supporting this project. However, we have been very cautious in not continuing those conversations because we want to be fully aware of when this project could be implemented and not make any kind of false promises or get people's hopes up when we would be unable to complete it or be able to identify a time frame for that completion. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions for me on the project.
Well, we just want to thank you, Bradford, for your patience on this. We know it's been a while. We are excited. We do have a CD now, so there's progress. And I guess my question would be maybe to anybody that could answer it is there a way that we could possibly fast track this site for remediation and start getting a timeline for Bradford? I know he's been patient, but I don't think we can expect him to wait forever. So I just wondered, I'd throw that question out there. Julia looks like her hand's up. Maybe she can help us with that. Go ahead, Julia.
Hi, Elizabeth. This is Julia Crane. I just wanted to give an update to everyone regarding the Bonanza site. The Bonanza is one of the sites on the insufficiently reclaimed list. And as all of you are aware, there are those two lists that are associated with the consent decree, the insufficiently reclaimed, and those are the sites reclaimed prior to 1997 when the specs were established, and then also the unreclaimed list. And we are currently in the process of pulling together the lists of sites that will be evaluated as part of that process. And so I can do what I can to really prioritize maybe this site in particular for its potential. And then that will allow us to maybe give Bradford some help expediting his concept. But we are beginning that process. We just received the first of those unreclaimed work plans. I think it was just yesterday from Pioneer. So we should start seeing some progress soon.
That's great news. Thanks, Julia. We appreciate that.
No problem.
All right. Do we have any other questions, comments on this project? All right. Again, thank you for your presentation, Bradford, and for your patience.
Absolutely. As I said last year, and when I was awarded the grant on behalf of the group, I am fully committed to seeing this project through. I now have a 2.5-year-old who is getting quite good on his strider. And so we are very much looking forward to the day when he gets to ride on this track.
Oh, we look forward to that day too. Thank you. All right, Ray, I think you're up next.
All right. So this project, this is initially in 2015, there was a small project awarded to, I believe the project sponsor proponent was Jenny Hegland. And that was Blacktail Creek Corridor Trail Development. The BNRC approved $50,000. for cooperative work with Butte-Silver Bow Recreation to plan some trail connections along the Blacktail. Subsequently, Jenny's moved away, and we realized there is a lot of interest in this project. So it was Elizabeth's recommendation, which made sense to NRDP and also to the BNRC, that we retain that $50,000, and those monies are reserved for NRDP to work in cooperation with Butte-Silver Bow to identify areas for projects or trail connections. Bob and I are yet to make much progress on this, but I think we're committed to doing so. So yeah, I'm a user of these trails in Butte, in particular the Big Butte, so I'm kind of looking forward to tying together what we can. Bob, would you like to comment any on this, or?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. You know, I've talked to Jenny before about this project. I think, you know, originally she was trying to connect from Highland View right there in Alaska Three Bears out to Thompson Park, and I think she ran into some resistance from the DOT on that area out there. And of course she's busy, you know, having kids and things. I was kind of thinking, you know, after talking to Pat, we kind of thought maybe a neat connection might be from Skyline Park along the highway down to Father Sheehan, right where we're looking right there. And that also, you know, connects all the way down, you know, Blacktail to the chamber. So that might be something to look at, Ray. I know we haven't talked much about that, but it's something to think about, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like a starting point. So I'd anticipate this, you know, we have funds in the recreation pot, and I'd anticipate that if we're able to identify some good projects, we could offer those for BNRC recommendations. So
Sounds good. We just want to keep this in everybody's mind. And it looks like Dory has a question out there. Dory, did you want to go ahead and chime in?
Thank you, Elizabeth, and members of the council and everybody else on the phone who are making such great contributions. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I'm sorry I'm on the phone and the computer. I apologize. So are making such wonderful contributions to our community. A shout out to a BMX project developing. It's been something I worked on years ago, and as things were completely unresolved about Superfund, it kind of died a slow, long death. But so I think that's just super great. I just wanted to mention something, and I've had some conversations with Bob Lazary, and also have been aware of Jenny Hegland's efforts and struggles with this with those kinds of connections to Thompson Park. I just wanted to say I'm hoping that we can pull together some additional contributions to an overall trail plan. The Coast to Coast Rails to Trails rail trail plan was announced 2 years ago. And it has some segments in Montana that need some fostering, and that includes primarily the Butte urban area. Ironically, or not ironically, the Silver Bow Creek Greenway Trail segments that have been constructed have been adopted and pulled into that system. I think this is a great opportunity for us as a community to again try to make those connections as trails continue to evolve and be developed through Lower Area 1 and through the Parrot tailings removal, and also making that kind of critical transition down to Thompson Park where we can get on the old railroad corridor and help to contribute to this national trail movement. Thanks.
That sounds great. Thanks, Dory. And that's really what we had in mind with this money was to do that planning and be able to do that up front, so we know what we want to do and then get together and do it. So that's exactly what we're thinking about, and it's exciting to hear that there might be some other money out there that we can get and match and put this plan together. So great. Any other questions or comments on the trail plan? All right, well, thanks everyone for updates on those recreation projects. I think we'll go ahead and move on to the NRDP's recommendation or follow up on the Reveg work plans. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. So as you all will recall, at our last BNRC meeting, the BNRC made a recommendation to advance with the 2021 revegetation work plans by Butte-Silver and Montana Tech. The natural resource damage program, we will approve those plans, and the issue that staff and I need to examine was we now have a signed consent decree for BPSOU, and we wanted to assure that future work plans didn't remove any use restoration funds to complete remedial obligations. So that was really the key point, and we've been in discussion with Butte-Silver about that. I think we're all aware of it. We just wanted to put it on the table for subsequent years for 2022. We're going to meet with Butte-Silver in the fall to look at the best approach to make sure we don't have conflicts or redundancy between remedial obligations by parties and restoration funds, which NRDP is charged with administering. So, but yeah, so in short, the natural resource damage program staff, we concur with the recommendation that the BNRC made at the last meeting, which was to approve the 2021 revegetation work plans for Butte-Silver and Montana Tech. Just wanted to check back on that as we committed to do during last meeting.
Great, thanks, Ray. Ooh, sorry. Any questions or comments on that? All right, let's move to the Streamside Tailings funds transfer update.
All right, Miranda, you can go ahead and bring up the next slide if you like. So. Yeah, so I guess not that slide. Yeah, so in brief, Joel Chavez is here to update us on the status of the remainder of those funds and when they might come to the state of Montana. The DEQ has been in conversation with EPA, and we know that this is a matter of import to all of our publics. So Joel, if you want to provide what update you can, that would be great.
You bet. Happy to. So just a little bit of history quickly. DEQ finished up the general construction on Silverbow Creek late in 2015, and at the end of 15, when we finished, we had about $40 million unspent money. In December of 15, we consent decree says if there's leftover money, it goes to the Natural Resource Damage Program. And to that end, in December of 2015, we transferred $16.5 million to the Natural Resource Damage Program. Since that time, we've continued doing mostly just some pretty straightforward O&M. And then in the last year or so, as part of the Butte negotiations, a part of that came down would be, is there additional excess money at this time? remaining from the Streamside settlement to transfer to Natural Resource Damage Program. The figure bounced around and it came to 5 million. And so DEQ, to do that, we have to get, EPA's got to say okay. And to that end, DEQ prepared a budget that we believed covered our O&M responsibilities, as well as some remaining projects, some infrastructure removal, things like that, things we knew we had to do, as well as some money for the unexpected O&M, and that's difficult to predict. So we did prepare that this last fall, sent that to EPA. They asked for some clarification or some backup on those numbers, and we supplied that. And then in April 23rd, last month, they responded saying that they had some additional questions they felt need to get answered before they could move forward with the request. So what I'm here tonight is to talk about where we're at with the basically three things that EPA brought up in their April 23rd letter. The first one is, it charts out the final rodeo waste removal and disposal alternatives. What we're talking about here is just under 25,000 cubic yards of waste that is mixed slag from the former phosphate facility that ended up on the floodplain. It's mixed with Streamside tailings, and at the time we were doing the remedy, we could not take it to opportunity ponds because of the phosphate component, and we put it up on the bench. And that's what that's referring to. We did look into that in 2013. We didn't really develop, they weren't what I call alternatives. We're looking to see if we could test it, see if we could separate the material, take the Streamside stuff, leave the Rhodia stuff. That we couldn't. And we looked at various alternatives. The extreme was, take it to a class C, Class D RICR facility for $7 million. That is the no way alternative, I'd call that. But since then, we've been having some discussions with ARCO, and we currently are doing that. And we think with the concurrence of the EPA, we can probably get that material down there for about $600,000. The $600,000 figure is, it's a fairly recent figure. It's a couple months old. I did the cost estimate, and the $600,000 is budgeted in what we put in for our remaining SST O&M budget. So that's moving along. We've been talking with ARCO, just talked to them the other day. We'll have to have some more talks, then we'll be talking with the EPA about that. So that's where that one is. The second question is more difficult. It's the Greenway. And the letter describes quite accurately what the ROD says about the institutional control program, coordination through joint effort with Butte-Silver, Anaconda Deer Lodge local government, which is really the Greenway, and how the IC plan has to coordinate, integrate with that. And so that's a little more difficult. What we're doing on that, though, is we have started, we will be developing an IC plan. That's required. And this language in the ROD that talks about coordination and cooperation with the Greenway is going to have to get fleshed out as part of that. It's not an IC per se, but it's going to be taken care of in that plan. So we are getting to work on that. We will get there. But it's going to be a tough one. There's just only so much to go around, but we've got to get there. So that's where we're at with that one. And the third question really is about came up in a 5-year review question the EPA posed in 2015, and it has to do with the interaction of surface and groundwater. We assembled the data we had based on our monitoring, sent that to EPA, and they've sent back a response that, brings up a lot of questions, more questions. But the EPA is open and made it very clearly, certainly willing to discuss that and see what we can do on those things. So we're just about ready to have that conversation and see if we can find a practical and economic make sense way to answer that 5-year review question, because it is a 5-year review question. We have to answer it and get that done. So all 3 of those things are actively being pursued now, and that's really what we're doing. I imagine there are some questions, and I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Great, thanks, Joel. Do we have some questions from the council on this? I see nothing in the room. Anybody on the phone?
Elizabeth, I do have. Sister Mary Jo.
Okay, go ahead.
And maybe not a question so much as a comment. The picture here is wonderful, and what a nice greenway that is that we're looking at. And isn't it wonderful that it's beautiful, it's attractive, and anybody would want to go there? So, there's a little work to be done yet. But the elephant in the front room that nobody addresses is Silver Bow Creek. Silver Bow Creek does not start at the chamber, flowing out of a pipe. Silver Bow Creek starts above that area, and that pipe should be released into a stream bed. Then we have a flowing creek coming through our city that supposedly will be wonderful for people to enjoy being around, and the vegetation will be Kentucky bluegrass at least, so that we're not looking at a wasteland what we do on Texas Avenue. And that's the elephant in the room, folks. Nobody wants to take that, and that's the starting area of everything down below. But we're also anxious to get everything down below all spick and span and taken care of. And we know that the trout are not flourishing as they should be down through that area. So, there's lots of things that maybe need to be looked at and to honestly be dealt with. And so if there are extra funds, maybe we need to put them into an area in the city of Butte, which has been totally neglected. I'm done, Elizabeth.
Ray Vinke here. Thank you very much, Mary Jo. I know everybody's working very hard to get there, and we got a long ways to go. Miranda, if you want to go to the next slide real quick. But yeah, your advocacy and that of BNRC is of course critical. And I will say we've come a long way since this, at least. But we've got a long ways to go, and I really appreciate all of your advocacy. So thank you. That's
Joel, I did have one question for you on your presentation. I wondered what kind of, so on the second question on the Greenway District, is there, it's talking about an institutional controls plan and an O&M plan. Are those developed yet? Or is that something that still has to be done?
Well, the operation and maintenance plan is done. The institutional control plan is not, but we have just started on it. The reason it really isn't done is because we've been down there. We've been close by, but this letter from EPA, it says it's required. It's absolutely correct. It is. So we're on it now, and I don't think we've done. The remedy was so much. We did a lot more than. We did a good remedy. So I think we should be able to get the IC plan out, draft within a month or 2 months, I would think. So, yeah.
Great. All right, any other questions on that?
Elizabeth, this is John Sesso.
Go ahead, John.
I guess I'm a little bit unclear about the next steps relative to the two things, the EPA letter requesting additional information, other than, I guess, Joel, my question is, other than the completion of the institutional controls plan, which is a requirement of the ROD, is there any other additional information that EPA has requested that stands in the way of the $5 million transfer?
They have requested that we get some resolution of the 25,000 yards of mixed waste up on the bench below Rhodia. And like I said, we're making good progress on that. We do have the money to move it. It was always budgeted in there. So it's not more information, it's more action, but that is moving quickly. The other thing, John, is this groundwater, surface water. Question is, what's the interaction between groundwater and surface water? 5-year review question, and we do have to get back to the EPA and figure out what it's going to take to resolve that answers the question without getting basic answers the question in an efficient and economic manner. So, but both those things are in motion right now.
Okay, a follow-up, Madam Chair?
Sure.
The second question has to do with the relationship that you referenced between the institutional controls plan and the operations and maintenance plan as it relates to the DEQ's long-term efforts and the Greenway Service District. I'm very pleased that you have acknowledged that relationship and how we have speaking really from someone who worked to get the Greenway Service District established way back when, we've always believed that it would become an integral part of the long-term maintenance of the remedy is to incentivize our community to take care of the corridor, having the trail system, and also the restoration investments that were made through the Greenway Service District right in the resource. As you know, Joel, you worked hard for many years now, going on 20, to make sure that the remedial investments that you were responsible for were fully integrated with the restoration investments that were made through the Greenway Service District and what's generally called the Greenway, and vice versa. And I remember when we agreed back when we had to remove the Ramsey Flats and some of the remedial work that needed to get done that just didn't quite fit into the remedial model, and so we used and funneled money through the Greenway to make sure we got the biggest bang for our buck on the integration of remedial work and restoration work, and sometimes that gray area. But now that we're there and we have almost completed, I appreciate the few things you have left to get done on the construction of the remedy. But now that we're there, we want to make sure that the Greenway Service District has a role in and that the funds that are available from the original remedial funds made available through the 1998 settlement are used to not only maintain those remedial elements relative to the protection of the environment, but also the restoration investments that we've made. And I'm hoping that between the DEQ and the NRD program, you can find that sweet spot in terms of making sure there are sufficient dollars to protect the entire corridor in an integrated project. Do you feel that that's generally an accepted premise, and it's just now trying to work out the details? What's your take on that, Joel?
Well, I mean, the language, the EPA just quotes it, and it's absolutely, it's a correct quote, they're coordination, cooperation, etc. So that language is right out of the ROD. So we're certainly going to have to write a IC plan that addresses that, because that is in the ROD. And yeah, it's just limited. The financial resource is finite, but we can figure it out. And that's why, starting on the IC plan, these things have to be addressed, and it's time to get to it.
Great. And on the other side, I guess I would address this question to Ray, you, or I'm not sure who among, I see Doug's on the line, not sure who else from the NRDP is there. From your perspective, do you also recognize that premise and are doing what you can to make sure that those NRD dollars that come back from the fund, the 98 settlement dollars that come back to the NRD program, are then also used? You have your share of that responsibility to make sure that the restoration investments we've made over these 20 years are also protected in the long term. Again, is the premise understood, and we're just now in a stage here over the next year or so to just get square on the details of how we can execute?
Yeah,
I guess I'll address that to you, Doug.
Yeah. This, Madam Chair, this is Doug Martin. Yes, John, I would say that yes, we are working with DEQ on this, along with the Greenway. We've had discussions with them, and it is one of our, yes, there has been a great investment in the Greenway, and to protect that or not to protect that would be a shame. So yes, we are working with these folks, and we will continue to work with them. I would like to remind everyone that the $5 million that is coming back to the restoration fund from the Streamside was allocated in the 2019 restoration plan amendments, specifically 2.5 to the BAO fund, to the stream restoration category, and 2.5 to the Upper Clark Fork for work around Warm Springs Pond. So that $5 million was specifically allocated to resources there in those three plan amendments. But to answer your question, John, yes, we are working with DEQ and the Greenway.
Thank you.
Looks like we have a question from Ken Champagne. Ken, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. I've met some of you. I work with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. I'm the newly assigned remedial project manager for the Streamside Tailings operable unit. And, we have been working closely with Joel. Joel's, trying to address everything that we've asked for, and we will continue to work cooperatively with Joel and the DEQ staff to ensure that a lot of these questions are answered and a lot of these unknowns are addressed. So yes, I just wanted to introduce myself, and if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to contact me, any follow-up, but I just wanted to again, express that Joel and I will be cooperatively working on these remaining issues.
Great, thanks, Ken. We appreciate that. All right, any other questions or comments on this item? Go ahead, Dory.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and members of the council. I do appreciate the comments from my colleagues, both on the DEQ side and the NRDP side, who have been so, you know, have seen this, had this vision for this long-term project, had a vision for us to be able to meld our funds together and create a value-added project to a corridor that has not seen 100 years of recreational use. The Greenway Service has worked diligently to be able to provide, you know, good opportunities and controlled opportunities into that corridor, including that ability to protect the remedy and restoration. We've had a long debate about whether or not those recreation facilities actually are institutional controls. I have and will have and have contended since 1999 that those direct trail systems and direct point of access are important to the preservation and the protection of all the investments, both remedy and restoration. I'd like to reach out, of course, to our EPA colleagues also in this whole discussion, because ultimately I think we need to all keep in mind if we don't have a long-term fund to support and maintain the corridor it's in its entirety, both its remedial restoration and recreational access components, this will fall to the citizens of Montana who will have to be, you know, lifting this up. I think again, just looking at the idea that the whole land use, the remedial actions, the restoration actions were predicated on this being a recreational corridor. You can't build a recreational corridor without trails. That excludes a significant portion of our community that may have a particular disability and couldn't have access to just sort of, you know, walking across, you know, an unimproved area. So I just want to send my thanks out to DEQ and the NRD and the EPA for pledging again tonight to continue to work on this and resolving this issue over time. We started this discussion in December because we thought it was important as we saw the dedication of that $5 million remainder from the SSTOU. And it's never too, you can never start on these long-term projects too early. I can tell you that. I just, we consummated a transaction on Friday for 130 acres for public access that we've been working on for 22 years. This is a long project, but we continue to move forward and want to see it both be successful in both communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Dory, and thanks for your patience and hard work on the Greenway too, because what a prize for our community it is, and we appreciate that. I guess why I've got everybody on the phone though, Bev Hartline sent us a question, and so I think she's dropped off, so I'm going to go ahead and ask her question. She wants to know when the trail through Durant Canyon is going to be open. She's anxious. And I see a hand here. Let me hang on 1 second. Whoever's got it up, go ahead and just jump in.
This is Dory. Joel may be jumping in on top of me. I don't know. As Joel mentioned, they are continuing to do some sort of mop-up, cleanup, and infrastructure, addressing some infrastructure, significant infrastructure that was built in order to do this major, hugely significant extraction of tailings. So they've got they're unwinding a big construction project. In a parallel fashion, we are trying to continue to make those connections into and through Durant Canyon. So there are some issues that involve some infrastructure that DEQ needs to obliterate. There are a couple of easement accesses that the Greenway Service District needs to achieve. And I want to say 2022, I'm going to shut up and defer to Mr. Chavez. It's not that difficult of an activity to get through there. It's just that we have, the Greenway Service District, our consultants have continued not to get in, wanting to get into the way or interfere with what DEQ is going on, and having something that would result in an investment with our dollars, our limited dollars, to something that could be affected in the long term by something DEQ had to do.
Yeah, Dory, I can follow up. Yeah, we've got our last real infrastructure removal is getting designed right now, and we hope to have that project complete by the end of this calendar year. So after that, our activities as far as heavy equipment and that will be out of there.
So 2022 sounds like a good time for you.
Well, I think if I can get his contract out, we'll be done in 2021 if it stops snowing. Yeah, I'd like to be done this year, and I think we will be done physically there this year.
Great, glad to hear it. All right, any more questions, comments? Thanks, Joel.
Matt.
All right, not seeing anything more on that. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about before we adjourn, and that's I've had a few people ask about actually meeting face-to-face in person again. Kind of wanted to take a poll of the council on if everyone is comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I see
Yes.
all of shaking in this room. How about on the phone?
Yes, Mary Jo.
Yes, from sister.
I'm in.
Okay.
Courtney Young, yes.
Okay. Suzanne, you good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. We may still do what everyone's calling a hybrid meeting, so that we can have people on Teams too, but have the council and any other community members that want to show up in a public room. And I think we'll try to do that for the next meeting if everyone is good with that. Does that sound good with NRDP?
It does, Elizabeth. Yeah, that'd be great. I think everybody's ready to get out and see some projects and meet each other. So.
Perfect. That sounds great. So maybe Ray, you could update us a little bit. We're looking at a June meeting, and that meeting topic for that one is going to be, remind me again.
Well, I think the best approach would be that we have a June meeting, which is going to be orientation for new members, individual meeting for those members. And then depending on people's schedules and availability, then we'd have a July meeting. Also, I think things will have leveled out with COVID concerns a little bit. We'll have a July or August meeting to look at some stream projects in the greater Butte area, possibly maybe also take a walk and see the progress at the Parrot. So anyway, that's what I was thinking, Elizabeth, and I believe we discussed was June orientation for members, and then July or August field visit.
Well, I guess maybe we weren't on the same page. I was thinking a June meeting on the stream stuff, and then the orientation would probably just be a couple hours one day, and we get that taken care of. So I think we could get both of those things done in June.
I'm not sure that's the case, given our staff availability. I think, I guess I'd like to be in touch with that individually, And then we can certainly reach out to BNRC members as well. So.
All right, we can talk about this a little bit more on offline. We'll decide what that. I'd like to do a June meeting on the stream stuff, and we'll see what we can get worked out with that.
Yeah, let's talk about offline. We'll loop everybody in with a decision.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you.
I would concur. I was expecting the updates on all of the projects tonight that are going on that are related to what we're doing at the BNRC, what the rest of the projects are going on. Then I guess the decision was made to just do the recreation ones and then the aquatic ones soon. So I would concur, Madam Chair, that if we could just get an update. I think it would be also very helpful to the new members and the veteran members alike to just hear the presentations, because there's quite a bit going on. There's a lot of projects in the hopper that are designed to with respect to Basin Creek, with respect to Blacktail Creek, with respect to Silver Bow Creek, German Gulch, etc. That I think it would be very informative for our group to get our head around, again, from a sort of a global level of all the things going on that are tied to the NRD and or other partners who got things going on. There's some stuff also with, as Pat Caneen mentioned early on, with respect to some projects on in the Silver Lake water system, Warm Springs Creek, etc. So I think a meeting in June to discuss these, and Ray, I don't understand really. I want to put any undue pressure on. We're not expecting to have the projects complete or in any way. I'm just looking for the opportunity to give you and the rest of the staff an opportunity to just report out on all the things going on all these projects, so we can all start tracking them together and fit them together, because one project really dovetails nicely into another, and we've got to keep in mind all the projects when we get approached by others for funding, etc. So I would concur, Madam Chair, that a meeting in June to talk about the aquatic stuff, like we did the recreation stuff tonight, would be very timely. Thank you.
Thanks, John. All right, we will we'll work on that June meeting. I'll let everybody know a date, and we'll get that orientation set up also. If anybody else have any comments, questions that they'd like to make before we adjourn?
Yeah, this is Courtney Young. This is going to be a really rough guess. 25 years ago, I helped dedicate a section of the Butte Trail system. It was down by the water treatment plant. Is that Centennial?
Yes.
Water treatment plant.
And there are about 3 or 4 settling ponds to the west of that. I mean, it's the metro system. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But there's a trail system down there that I helped dedicate, and the expectation, of course, was people to be able to use it. But within 6 months, the fences were put up, and it was no longer allowed. And I was just curious what the reasoning was for that, if anybody even knows.
Maybe I could add some value to that. the dedication, Courtney, was the Sam Wooster trail
Exactly.
section. And it was in honor of Sam, who had passed away, and we wanted to make sure that there would be interpretation someday for the trail system that's part of the priority soils operable unit. And so the sign's really in a tough shape right now, but it's still there. But because that section essentially from Texas Avenue to Montana Street, and then from Montana Street to where the Greenway starts, and Dory's really got some work to do between Whiskey Gulch coming back a mile towards the actual boundary between Streamside Tailings and the priority soils. So we have plans in place to connect that trail. Some of us are working hard to make sure we can get a bridge over Montana Street, but so that what's called the Shoddy Ulrich section from the visitor center east to Harrison, and then there's the section that was named after Mr. Poor. Those all would be connected, and the funds are in place. The plans are being developed. The only difference is the trail's not going to be on that bench where we had the Sam Wooster Trail, because we think that it's just too proximate to both Metro and the Butte treatment lagoons. So it's actually going to be down below to the south of the bench, that old tunnel from Butte Reduction Works to the Colorado smelter area. So it's going to be south of there, and we've redesigned it, and that's going to be implemented as part of the work under what's called the Butte Reduction Works work plan under the consent decree. And that's all spoken for, and that'll get done. Then Dory can fill us in on negotiations with the highway department, and then connecting with the Greenway at Whiskey Gulch. So that's all going to get done. We appreciate everybody's patience on not getting in there too soon. I think we'll have an excellent trail, really from one end to the other, and connected with the Greenway before we're all done in the next 5 years.
Well, John, thank you for that, because I worked with Sam for about 3 years before he retired, and he was doing an ABET review of, I think it was South Dakota School of Mines. On his way home, he died at the airport, and I would like to be able to help if there's any way I can do that.
Yeah, we'll get that done in his honor.
On that section of trail, that's good to know. All right, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, thanks everyone. Great meeting tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.